Bowers Game Corner presents Gen Con Video Bonanza 2014. Made possible by Billionaire Banshee, Guys, Games, and Beer, Dashing Inventor Games, creators of the Simple System role-playing game system, and Zonko, makers of Mobs, the t-shirts that turned life into an RPG.
Ahoy there, we're back for our Gen Con Bonanza. This one's sponsored by Zonko. They're releasing Mobs on Kickstarter right now. Really cool. Be sure to check them out. But we are with Nathan with Cosmic Wombat Games. And what are we checking out, Nathan?
Hello there. This is called Campaign Trail. Estimated to be on Kickstarter around springtime is the plan at this point. It is a politically based theme. You're vying for the presidency of the United States. It actually does play 2 to 6 players. A lot of political based games only play 2 players, the few that are out there. This one's 2 to 6 players. So you have your typical Democrat and Republican parties. We also have a third independent party that is actually balanced for gameplay. And in a 4 to 6 player game, you actually have kind of a team mechanic where you have president and vice presidential candidates that are working together. They share a pool of money, but they do have independent hands that they work with. And then 6 players, of course, you have 3 sets of 2. So we actually developed an in-game scoring mechanic, which is pretty interesting. So the width of the different units is proportionate to the electoral votes. So as you can see, they start out balanced, they start out equal. And so as a party may take a state from another party, you kind of rearrange it and you can see where you stand at any point in the game. And so that really does 2 things for us. That allows us to have a little bit tighter, closer, more of a fought out game because you know where everybody's standing. And it also allows, at the end game, as soon as the game's over, you know where you stand. Because we found early on before we developed that you're adding what's 55 plus 32 plus 3 plus 5 plus 16 and so on, and it gets really cumbersome. So the game plays, you do start out with votes in some of the different regions. It is supposed to be mostly realistic. New England starts out kind of Democrat, your Western is Republican and so on. You're not perfect, obviously, related to that because there's a balance between realism and gameplay, of course. But you really have 6 actions that you work with. So every card has 4 of those 6 actions. So in various different combinations. So of those actions, you have travel. You can travel. You can take your little pawn, and move them different number of places. There's 3 to 5 different locations. So this one is 4 places that you move them. There's also some that have a flight. So you can move your pawn from any location, wherever it's at, to any of the airports. There's different airports that are located across the board in different regions. And those are a little bit more powerful because they allow you to kind of jump across the board. You have fundraising, which just is pretty simple. You discard it, you get money. You have you have register. So you have campaign workers out there registering voters for you and that kind of thing that allow you to get cubes. So you have cubes. And so not only do you have a resource management related to the amount of money that you have, and this is a little dial that tracks your money, so you have to make change and constantly count it and all that kind of thing. You can just adjust the dial. But now you also, as an extra kind of strategic element, you have resource management related to the registered voters. So the bank, if you will, of voters is unregistered voters. Your pool of voters is registered to your party, and those that are out there are kind of committed to vote for you. So that gives you more voters. And then you have... You also have advertising. So advertising is going to be here on the upper right with different symbols. There's 18 different issues that you can advertise on. This one has 2 different icons. They even have the state abbreviations as a quick reference for you. Advertising is 10 million per vote that you place out. Advertising is meant to be more spread out with less impact. So I can advertise in multiple different states. Each advertising icon appears in 3 different locations. And I don't have to advertise in every single location. I can pick and choose, but it's 10 million per each one. So I have a maximum of 6. It's a maximum of 1 vote per state. So I can come over here to Colorado and I can say, well, you know what, Colorado, I already have that. I don't want to do that. But New Hampshire, maybe I want to fight over that, so I'll pay 10 million to vote that, and so on. So that's my advertising. Campaigning, on the other hand, notice there's a mixture of states here. Campaigning is more geographic, it's more localized, but it's a bigger impact in that local area. So to campaign, I have to be in one of those states that appears on the card. And so that's where the movement action kind of comes into play. You set yourself up on a previous turn for your campaigning, for example. So if I'm over here in, let's say, Pennsylvania, Now, if I'm in one of those states, I can campaign, I can place votes in any of those states. It is a maximum of 6 votes, but there's no maximum per state. So I can put all 6 in one state if I want to. I can put 3 in one, 2 in another, 1 in another, and so on, however I want. It's 10 million per vote, just like advertising. I don't have to do all 60 million. Maybe I'm almost broke and I only have 30 million left. I just throw in last-ditch effort of 3 votes or whatever. So that's how my campaigning works. And then lastly, as the action, there's also events that happen. Events, some of them play on table that allow to give you a benefit. There's one, for example, that plays on table that allows you to have 2 votes per advertising icon. You still have to pay for it, but it increases the maximum. This time says each time you or your running mate play a card showing your home states, because there's home states that get picked, you get a little bit of benefit in those home states. Gain 1 vote in your state. So you get a little bit of an extra benefit related to that. There's some that just play immediately, and maybe there's like scandals that play on your opponent, cause them to lose money or lose votes and things like that. There's a few that play that affect the end of game. There's one called Recount, for example. That's a little bit of a surprise for your, the hanging chads in Florida. It's a little surprise for your opponent, so that they don't know quite, what state that's affecting and so on. So that's the 6 actions. So it plays pretty simple. You have a hand of 5 cards. You play your card and you say, okay, I want to play it as whatever. I want to fly. I fly over here to Los Angeles, draw a new card, and my turn's done. That's simple, and it just goes around. There is a turn order. It starts out Democrat, Republican, and Independent. And we actually changed the turn order twice during the game after debates, and it's based on number of points. Unlike a lot of games, the player with the least number of points actually goes last, but in this game that's a little bit of a benefit because then you can have the last word. You can adjust to whatever your opponent just did. I was planning on coming over here and taking Colorado, but my opponent just took Florida. I think that's important. I'll just do that instead. And so you get that kind of last word, if you will. So there's a little bit of benefit to that. So we changed the turn order a little bit to keep the balance alive as well. So as I'm placing votes out there, of course, I'm checking to make sure if, I took control of a state from anybody else, and of course have that scoring tracker, as well as when I put my votes out there. The other mechanic that's interesting, if there's ever a tie in a location, let's say, for example, I have a red cube here and I have a blue cube here, there's a tie. So there's a tiebreaker mechanic. There's a white star here. Now the white star is the first tiebreaker. So if I were playing with an independent party and it was a tie between white and red, then white would get the state. So for example, if it was between here, blue and red in South Dakota, well, red gets the state. But in this case, well, there's no white party. Either I'm not playing with a white party, or the white party, even if I'm playing with them, they're not involved in that particular tie. In that case, it reverts to the second place tiebreaker, and so blue actually wins the state. Of course, red could take it if they had 2 to the 1, but that's kind of how that works with the tiebreakers. So you have the tiebreakers, the abbreviations, the number of electoral votes, all right there in one spot to look at. There is a debate mechanic. In a nutshell, you have a debate topic and a debate city that you know about ahead of time. There's 2 debates per game. After the deck is drained, you have a debate round, and so you have icons that appear at the bottom of the card as well, and those are in the debate. So you lead a card, and your opponent plays another card that has icons that match those icons and match the topic. And so you know about the topic ahead of time, so the idea is to kind of plan for it ahead of time. You know what city it's going to appear in, because the city appears in, everybody goes to that city to debate each other. So that can be good, that can be bad, but if you plan for it accordingly based on the other cards you have, it may be a good thing, because it's kind of like a free flight, if you will. So you may play a rebuttal card and cancel out some of the votes that they just earned in that debate and so on. But really, debates, just like in real life, they're not really a win or lose. They're kind of a combination of both. You can win some votes and lose some other votes and so on, and that's kind of realistic as well. When the last deck is up, the game's over. You resolve any end game event cards that affect scoring, if there are any, and then like I said, who wins kind of right off the bat. So that's campaign trail in a little nutshell.
All right, Nathan from Cosmic Wombat Games. That looks right up my alley. Nice, juicy, political. I like the fact it's 2 to 6, and you can have
2 to
3
6
teams
and
going.
Yep, and it plays in about 2 hours, give or take. The more you get familiar with it, you can get it down to about an hour and a half typically. So team games tend to take a little bit longer because there's more of that discussion and deliberation back and forth. But an hour and a half to 2 hours is a typical gameplay.
All right, thank you, Nathan. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe to the link below.
Bowers Game Corner presents Gen Con Video Bonanza 2014. Made possible by Billionaire Banshee, Guys, Games, and Beer, Dashing Inventor Games, creators of the Simple System role-playing game system, and Zonko, makers of Mobs, the t-shirts that turned life into an RPG.
Really need to remember these. How do I not remember? Don't look at that. Alright, Zonko.